not much you can do about it considering the circumstances, but they're certainly making the best of it over on the Empire side of things as we get into our second map and see how exactly this is going to play out. As we already start things out with an interesting ban, one that certainly makes sense though. Flores has become a mainstay for utility clear specifically on this map, so let's knock him right out and remove that potential tool from the attacker stature as well. That's been a mainstay in our meta for quite some time, so no surprises there.
An insane operator that Ubisoft provided us, most definitely, because he is the only one that can get rid of utility in the way that he does. He has an explosion on a drone. For everybody else, they have to throw things at the actual shield or whatever they want to clear, and that gets eaten up by ADSs and my discs and whatever else. The only counter to Flores, a mute jammer or you shoot it. And usually people are not playing mute jammers around shield, so Flores has a pretty direct route to getting rid of a lot of these setups that the defense will end up having. But the rest of these bans, folks, they just make so much sense for Kafe, Thatcher, Valkyrie, and Mira all off the board.
And I'll be honest with you, usually people aren't shooting those drones either. They have a very good track record of being able to sneak in and quickly get, at minimum, the explosion off to take out a shield or two, which might be a couple inches in front of one of our players here.
The drone jukes are just insane. I'm telling you, that's something that you develop over time as a Siege player. You get those nice little drone jukes down. If you guys don't know, you can actually abuse your hop. If you look right down at the floor and jump, then it will actually launch your drone forward instead of, going up in the air or whatever. So it's a nice little speed boost. You can, break people's ankles with that and try and keep those drones alive, and that's really what you're looking to do. Information's extremely important, but Flores is importanter.
All right, so let's see how the lack of Flores will potentially affect Empire and eventually NIPs. They'll be jumping onto the attack in our second half here, but Empire is in the hot seat initially, as once again the defense generally being favored on this one. I think as far as our tournament stats are concerned right now, though, it's not necessarily the case. You and I were looking at it earlier. I'm pretty sure that defense is like a 40% win rate or something like that on this map right now. Obviously, you can confirm it in a second here, but it's a bit of a skewed tournament in that respect, actually. Quite a few maps are flip-flopped right now, so we'll have to follow that closely as we continue further and further into the tournament.
45% win rate, my friend, and the funniest one of all, 21 attempts on Bar Cocktail, it's got a 29% defensive win rate, which is the site we're on right now.
Absolutely the case here. And once again, a large part of that reason is, I want to be honest, this site feels like it's kind of played out in a lot of ways. It feels like teams have really stretched the strategy out on this one as far as it can go, and that means that attackers pretty much know what to expect 99% of the time here and have plenty of experience of being able to clear it out as well.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing, is just this is the site that you have to be able to clear. So every single team, that's their standard for Kafe if they're going to go to this, is being able to clear this top floor as well as kitchen downstairs. Those are going to be some pretty big things. But this top floor plays into a lot of things because of it playing into the mid-level sites. You really want to be able to understand the top floor of Kafe quite a bit and be able to synergize with your team well in your ability to clear this space. Now, for Ninjas and Pyjamas, they are going to be setting this up in not the most traditional way, but one that we see quite often here with the castle barricade set up to make sure they can protect their player inside of Cigar and hold that space for a while longer. Now, the other thing for Ninjas and Pyjamas that they have going on is no pixel pressure. That's the other thing. But Psycho, he's obviously going to be able to rotate in and out of this space. Seems like he might be able to get one here on the actual stage window. They do swing back in, but oh no, the cutoff from Dan. Psycho, he's gotten overzealous and he's lost his life.
Psycho, unfortunately, tunnel visioning on that one player. They're not accounting for alternate angles that Empire could have taken up. That's going to be Dan continuing his opening kill rampage as well as he adds another +1 to that one, being able to take out Psycho. Not the start that NIP wanted here. They're not done just yet. Still plenty of pressure they can throw, even from the inside of this bathroom area, back out towards those very same windows. So Empire, well, yes, they've gotten the opening kill. They still have plenty of work to do in terms of map control here.
And Dan, not rocking the ARX either, bringing in the AK with a couple magazines that we don't get to see, in the hands of Nomad too often, just because of how prominent the ARX is overall, but no slouch of a rifle either. Got some extra bullets inside of that magazine and a little bit of a slower fire rate there. So either way, Empire doing a very bang-up job of propelling themselves forward. Joystick will start to get control here inside of Ticket, and quite the quiet map for him on the initial one, but mostly just because a lot of the kills were being soaked up by Dan.
Absolutely the case here. Mosey continuing to bait out time and continuing to look for a potential contention against the push in from Red Drop. Not going to see anyone really swing out against him, though, so he is successfully holding on to that. And Empire are unfortunately slowly running out of time here. Only that first kill against Psycho so far to write home about in terms of any advantage they've gained. They are sitting back, hoping someone will peek out, and as well waiting for that potential opening kill to really start this execute forward, always with another nice frag from below to take out Pino and pull the advantage up to a 5v3. We're going to find another one two. I mean, yeah, I can't even finish my sentence. There we go. They just execute them all one by one by one. And Empire give us a very dominating stance on their opening attacking round here.
Not too much conversation going on here for NiP either. Obviously have, I can't remember. I believe it's Kamikaze in the center. I can't necessarily remember off the top of my head right now, face-wise. But either way, just a conversation going in between the two. And, I mean, that's really it. For Ninjas in Pyjamas, they're just playing very scared inside of sight. They don't know where any of these members are. There's zero information and zero will for Ninjas in Pyjamas to actually exert pressure around the map. The only thing that we saw was Psycho with that misplay inside of Christmas, and then past that, Ninjas in Pyjamas is getting dusted across the board. Frag grenades coming in from down low and everything of the sort.
Bold choice to go back to this site as well, in my opinion, from NIP here. They're going to waste no time immediately re-picking that one and trying this out a second time to see if a new strategy or a new lease on this site may be what they need to control it here, with the very one-sided nature of how Empire were able to control it. To be fair, you know, only showing up those last 30 seconds or so as Empire was kind of given the keys to the kingdom, specifically in the main bar itself towards the middle of this floor. There seemed to be no resistance from NIP inside of the usual areas such as that cocktail wall, so they were able to walk right in. At least their first kill was just free for the taking as they had an angle against the player in Freezer with no counter to it.
Yeah, it was actually Psycho and Kamikaze. They were having a little bit of a discussion there as they were talking back and forth and seeing what they can possibly do for this next round. But past that, very quiet on the NiP bench, and that does not bode well. When you talk about LATAM teams, we're talking about energy. We're talking about them being loud and proud in the way that they're playing the game, and that is not happening for Ninjas in Pyjamas in the current moment.
We see a couple drones get dispatched of here inside of the prep phase, but as we move through that, not going to be a huge deficit, only two of them being knocked out, still plenty in excess for Empire to utilize here, as Empire's looking once again for a quick path in, maybe a little bit quicker this time, although once again, a fairly confident win from them when everything was said and done, so maybe they're perfectly fine to just rerun this exactly the same way once again. In terms of operator picks, it's going to be very much that here, as they bring a very similar flair to the table, and aside from that, a very similar opener as well, as they're putting a lot of presence on those Christmas repels while they drone things out.
I mean, it's really not that much of a change here, all except for Julio. This is the answer that they have for always coming in down low with the frag grenade, is just Julio playing this space down here. But Empire should drone this before they come downstairs, because if they don't, then they're just playing the game incorrectly. I'll just put it that way for you. As for NiP, though, they're going to be playing very far back inside of the site. This is going to allow Empire not only Christmas control, but also Cigar as soon as they drone out that information. It should be fairly straightforward. There's no mute jammers in play here, so nothing to deny information away from Empire, and you can see that right now as they've already started to muster some space over here on the west side.
See Pino getting himself a slight engagement on the cross against a member of Empire. Reaction just a little bit too slow, so not going to be able to catch any serious damage. A lot of utility being exchanged here as Empire throw the opening volley of their flashes and whatnot into the specifically freezer, as well as that bathroom area to try and flush those players out. Not with too much success, unfortunately, as you're going to see NIP continue to maintain those positions, and obviously, as you guys have probably noticed by this point, no opening kill for Empire either. NIP playing a lot more passive, a lot more locked into their setup, which is potentially going to allow for them to fight better against this execute that Empire will be forced to go for if they continue to bait out the time. Nades coming in from up on top this time, rolls into the freezer. It's a minimal health effect, might have been used to take out a piece of utility or two, however.
I think the Electro Claw is actually still there. No, it did end up getting it, so they'll be able to get the freezer wall open, and that's exactly why Psycho's playing inside of this space. But with the newfound holes that will be inside of the freezer area, it's going to be a little bit more difficult for him to hold on to this, but that's the entire point of him locking this down here. He's going to try and play out his life and see if he can deal some damage, but damage has already been dealt. It's on the joystick as he'll go down here, and that'll be NiP with their very first pick of the entirety of the game. This is the first kill that they've gotten.
We're going to see Muzi move in there, and despite a teammate getting hit by an air jab, Muzi able to still negotiate a second kill against Dan. Very well done, and a much better strategy coming out here this time from NIP to hold it back. Finally, the passive play is working into their favor, specifically on this third floor hold. The first exchange did come in from Empire, but it's unfortunately not a huge amount of impact at this point, especially with Scyther having most of his HP ripped right off here. Kamikaze steals away one of his teammates.
Oh, no.
Scyther will be finished off, and now Shepard's got nowhere to go except right into Pino's crosshair. That's a solid response coming out from NIP, and they quickly tie us up at 1-1.
That's what you want to see out of Ninjas in Pyjamas. The way that they played around Kaid, especially inside of Freezer, boded extremely well for them. Able to get the early picks there, Empire fight back in a certain capacity, but obviously it wasn't enough. We get the initial pick there from Shepard, but then that's really all that was dealt back in order for Ninjas in Pyjamas to take that round. So those shift up not only away from the bar side and raise that stat that Kafe definitely needs on that top top floor, but they'll also be shifting things down towards Reading Room and Fireplace Hall. Kamikaze will initially show the pulse, so obviously Empire are going to have to be worried about that, but he'll 6-pick away and go to the Vigil.
I mean, technically, it's just backwards started at the beginning of this map, because
technically
they won the first round, so they've evened it back out. But but either way, we'll see, as they'll probably get one more chance to try that at some point later on in this half, especially with how favorably that whole...
Oh, yeah, because they lost... Yeah,
So they won one and they lost one.
It's literally backwards.
It took you a few moments to get that one.
I haven't eaten today, man.
Anyway.
I've had a croissant. The croissant was good, though. It was a good croissant.
Very good. We'll be getting lunch very quickly after this one. But as we look back once again at the new hold coming in from NIP, there is going to be still an extension up to the second floor. Reinforcements coming in. It's a very similar position. It actually looks like they want to play into possibly this Christmas hold or the bathroom hold a little bit for themselves here, even though we're going to be downstairs once again on the Reading Room play this time for NIP here. So curious to see how this potential even further extension out from the usual areas is going to work for the squad.
And it's just Pyjamas with some peculiar secondary utility as well. Muzi won't be bringing the impacts. Instead, he'll be bringing the proximity sensors as well. So he'll have some info inside of that department that could possibly assist them in seeing what Empire want to do early on with the map. And like we talked about previously with the way that you're looking at Kafe from the offensive side of the coin, is that you really want to know what you're doing for this top floor clear. And this is exactly why. It may not be the top floor, but look at where everyone is and look at what the utility set up as. They need to hold on to this top floor, make sure the verticality cannot come in from Empire, and that's what they're going to look to abuse. If Nip can deal some serious damage to Empire early here, the round's done.
Empire prioritizing the intel game more than anything right now, as they do realize the threat on the third floor here and are going to hyper-focus with at least 3 players trying to look for a path into this third floor. But as you were mentioning, such a spread-out setup for NIP. There really isn't going to be a safe path to take some positioning here on the third floor. They'll have to fight someone from Nip no matter where they try to drop in from, so might have to just see someone go for it in a moment or two. Here, the castle barricade over towards Cigar will get spotted by Joystick, and he'll use his Gone 6 to take care of that, but still, like I was saying, absolutely not enough confidence to hop right in there and try to take the control for himself. Kamikaze, however, is going to get droned out in that part of the map, so he'll be forced away from it and eventually forced down on the second floor. So Empire's still making a small amount of progress in clearing out things here on the third.
Halfway through the round now for Empire to continue progression and trying to apply this pressure towards Nip and back them off of the top floor, but you can see the amount of avenues that Nip also has blocked off, especially around this White Hall area. In tow with the bar space that they're currently holding from Cocktail, Empire will now spring to. Drones in here, be able to get rid of the mute jammer to clear up that other drone, but one working its way all the way across Long Bar, and will be able to read into Pino's location inside of Cocktail, but not before he removes the head of Shepard. And that'll knock the case down as well. This is getting quite drastic, but Joystick will be able to at least answer with a kill onto Kamikaze. Proximity sensor will give up his push here inside of White. Can the ARX get it done? He doesn't even tag him, but goes back both ways. He'll finally get taken out by Pino as he tries to aggress.
With a nice find initially against Shepard, and another smooth find as well, capitalizing on the play from Joystick as he was able to get away from the White Hall fight. But unfortunately, there was a rotation and a freezer that gave him the angle he needed to shut him down as he moved further out. Dan, with a good catch against Julio, nearly finds him, and Muzi comes in for the assist, saves his teammate's life. Pino back in it with a third kill just in this round here, and now only one remaining for Empire. Scyther against the world, and he can't get it done. Pino gets the quad, I believe, going for him inside of that round, and another good one is picked up by NIP.
Fantastic round there from Pino with the ump of everything around of all of the guns he could have possibly have had there. Either way, that 1.5 getting it done at the end of the day, and Ninjas and Pyjamas will pull ahead for the very first time inside of this series.
See that opener once again from Pino as he started things out well, and really things continue to go well for specifically him, but as well the rest of NIP. Like we were talking about earlier in the round, Empire was struggling to clear out that third floor extension, and while eventually around the minute-and-a-half mark or so, they were able to clear out the more aggressive player position over by Cigar just by kind of flashing and droning him out. They weren't really able to put much pressure at all on that usual position extended over towards Cocktail, and those players, specifically Pino, were really able to rip open most of the attack that was eventually coming in from Empire. So NIP just continue to rotate through their sights, and we're going to be back down to the first floor hold.
Well, kitchen for the very first time here for Ninjas and Pyjamas. We'll see what they want to do with this. They're going to have the rotation into Bakery, so it looks like we're going to have some Bakery plays, boys and girls. Yay! Could also see some things going out towards coat check, which is toward the north side of your screen. We see that room occupied pretty damn often just because of how important it is to the crossfire that you can have inside of the main kitchen space. As for everything else, though, it looks like it's just going to be extension after extension after extension, as we will have a player inside of VIP. This is something that we've grown to be accustomed to on Kafe. We haven't seen it that much recently inside of North America, but this is a strat that it still works. I mean, the map's the same. You can do really whatever you need in this space, and with Flores gone, it makes this strat a lot more viable.
So for Empire, starting to struggle a little bit here on the outset. Their second map in the series, a confident win back on map number 1. You guys can see the scoreline on the top right side of the screen, 7-2 in their favor. NIP has already picked up that many rounds here on their defensive side of our second map and is on a warpath to be able to claim a third for themselves. But it's a new site in play as well this time here. That doesn't necessarily mean we are going to get a new opener, but from the looks of it, it does appear once again here that for the most part, we are seeing NIP contain themselves to that first floor hold, and of course the bakery area that you were talking about earlier. Just one kind of lurking about here on the second and third floor to try and maybe get lucky and catch some of the initial pressure from Empire if they want to focus on the top-down clear.
Well, smooth and steady for both squads right now. This is going to require a lot of info game here from Empire. As you can see, the drone spinning up top. Joystick in to try and assist with this. Seeing if they can get away with as much as they possibly can on this top floor. A couple of mute jammers around the space, but it doesn't seem like there's too many people occupying the area that could possibly get him into trouble. But obviously Joystick doesn't know that, and will just continue to pre-fire things and make sure no one's creeping in the bathroom that could possibly place spoils to him trying to push up white.
You can see a very, very slow roll once again here for Empire. Worked for them when they had the huge amount of intel gained to assault the third floor back on the first round, but keep in mind it was also built up on the back of an opening kill they found for themselves due to an over-aggression from NIP. NIP immediately learned their lesson from that first round and haven't made that mistake since here. Dan, gonna throw out that air jab. I think it did get caught on the rafters, right?
Yeah, it did.
Yep, so that's gonna be one that's ultimately wasted a little bit here. And he'll have to throw a second one out if he wants to use it on those whiskey stairs.
It's really unfortunate for some reason Nip wants to go up to Newbauk and just gets knocked all the way back.
Yeah, I doubt that's going to happen.
Yeah. There's really no reason for them to be there, but I mean, I wouldn't put it past them, you know what I mean? Nitro Cell out here to try and deal with Always, but he'll be able to stay alive here and continue to assist Dan in working these angles up top as that hammer continues to swing away at the floor. 40 seconds remain now for Team Empire as they're looking to bear down onto site, but Ninjas in Pyjamas have done such a bang-up job of holding on to site control and keeping these crosses alive. Julio now trying to step up and deal with the player upstairs, but he won't be able to do so. The plant now going down for Shepard, and where the hell is he? He's inside a bunker. Pino's got the answer, though, and they're going to have to do something about this. He's done it twice now, and Scyther will have to pick it up and go for it himself. Do they have the Overwatch? They do. Scyther will be able to get him, but actually, he had to get off a plant to do so. He kills yet another, and he has to go for the plant yet again. Where are his teammates? Muzi gets the kill, and that's going to be it. Always is all the way upstairs, and, well, there's not really much you can do from that position.
There's very, very little support system set up for that plan. As we saw, players from Empire were still all over the place. Yeah, some of them were up on top trying to support it. We had at least one sitting further back at the freezer connection trying to assist with that as well, but they had done nothing to force out the utility at the previous point in that round, and nothing especially to deal with the bakery setup. So everybody from NIP was cool, calm, and collected and had no problems throwing out the aggression to stop that plan time after time after time again and negotiate a third overall round. This is a great bounce back from NIP as they're really in control here so far on Kafe.
Yeah, that initial round was very, very scary, but it really didn't seem as though with these rounds that we've seen past that Ninjas in Pyjamas were sweating at all when it came to Kafe. This has been looking quite stellar across the board from them, excuse me. But as of now, headed back up towards Bar Cocktail, and this is a site that gave him so many issues initially, but it could possibly get in the way of Empire this time around, just like they have these previous three.
Starting to see a bit more as to why this map is banned out so often against NIP here, despite the weird stats on their win percentage. I think it looking like NIP has really brought a lethal strategy, at least for the defensive side, to the table to negotiate a win here and potentially take us to that third and final map on Clubhouse as well. Empire needs to recenter themselves very quickly, as no longer are they being gifted these early 1v1s or these opportunities to get advantages versus NIP. It's all falling to them to make their own progress in the round, and so far, ever since the first, they have failed at that 3 times in a row.
Yes, indeed. You know, it might be the curse of the flawless round, honestly. Feeling so confident with that initial win and now not being able to really get anything done. You know, as for the previous time that we saw them attack this, the second time around, definitely didn't go about it in the same fashion. Ninjas of Pyjamas really only did one thing majorly different, and it was have Julio downstairs inside of reading. Everybody else was just playing safely over towards the cocktail side, as well as having their player inside of Fraser, but that won't be happening this time around either. Ninjas of Pyjamas have actually thrown a curveball into the bar setup here, so Empire will definitely have to get this info game going early on.
Just what a change-up we've had in this half as well, from starting out, as you mentioned, with a flawless round, and really a big capitalization on the flawless round for Empire as they waltz right through the entire third floor setup that NIP had built up. But ever since then, Empire has really failed to get anything started whatsoever. As we saw in that previous round, yeah, they're able to get themselves into a position to plant, but they don't even get close to getting the full thing down onto the ground as they ignore most of the deeper setup from NIP and pay the price for it, as the utility was left aplenty for NIP to use to stop that so many times here. And we're going to start to see them get a tad more aggressive in terms of their opening positioning here for NIP. You can see specifically, again, that cigar positioning being maintained here by one of their players as they pushed out to hold that one and try to slow down the kind of initial hatch drops that we're going to get out of Empire. As a result of that, Empire are going to choose not to immediately deal with it. They're going to use some of their fragmentation grenades to be able to take out the utility supporting the player inside of Fraser, and if they can get lucky, get the player itself.
Empire, specifically Joystick, working out towards White Stairs. He won't take out the default cam either because that would give up his location, as he knows that more than likely someone is directly above him. He had to have heard that barbed wire that Julio just sprinted through, but Joystick won't be able to do the same. As soon as he steps on that barbed wire, Julio's going to swing into this, so he'd have to win that close fight. And instead, it's better for him to just play inside of this space and see if he can get somebody to rotate into him. He's going to start trying to progress forward a little bit, as obviously we are getting down to the last minute, and oh, he gets right on the edge of the barb, and Julio actually steps up into the position. Perfectly timed here from Joystick, as he'll be able to take down the NIP member.
So that's Empire once again finding their good footing. We hadn't seen really since the first round. They do try to go for a second one. Joystick a little bit off the mark to be able to lock down that player and no damage will really bleed over either. The second one though, wrong side of the case. Let's see though. Oh no! He walks over Pino with a fatal mistake because he was probably safe for the other side, but no longer. He goes down to the second frag grenade, and that's now a 2-0 lead on kills here for Empire. Keep in mind though, time is low, only 30 seconds left, so it's not impossible for NIP to swing this back here in the dying seconds of the round.
Ninjas of Pyjamas does have the time on their side, John, but a lot to do. Cycle will take down Dan, always fires back, though. They're going to have to get something done up against him. Look at this prime real estate that he's occupying here on the balcony. Heaven is looking so crispy for him. Muzi will be able to pick up one, but not before Always shuts him down. And what a round from him. Empire strikes back.
So Empire, once again, able to find that early pressure that had been evading them for the previous 3 rounds there. The opening kill, as well as the nice follow-up with their utility. Once again, both rounds they won as well. They've been able to get one of those frag grenade kills from down below. So the move from NIP to actually counteract that ended up saving their life on the second attempt. And now that we don't get it on the third follow-up, immediately we see repeated success coming out from Empire there. So NIP need to once again readjust their strategy and find a way to win into that. Thankfully, they don't have to worry about it too much, as they're not going to even play into that site anymore. They're going to go directly towards a reading room where they had no problem controlling that on the one time it's been played out so far.
I love how Empire did that, because what they ended up doing with that frag grenade going off and killing, I believe, Pino, they actually timed that with Always swinging into Heaven, and that's exactly how he got into that position. So he wipes out the cocktail player, doesn't have to worry about that anymore, and now Always has free reign of everybody else inside of the site because he knows that the cocktail member can't contest his swing into the actual window. So very well done from Empire and their understanding of how they needed to break apart Ninjas in Pyjamas defense.
Let's take a look at the final setup from the defensive side of NIP. Already negotiating at minimum the tie point at what would be 3-3 should they drop this final round, but going to be trying to negotiate themselves something a little bit better here if they could push up towards 4-2. Remember what we were talking about at the beginning of this map. Currently statistics do favor the attack, however, slightly of the plays that we have had so far in this tournament. So if that continues to be the case here, NIP will be in a good position once again to carry the warpath forward onto our third battleground. Over on Clubhouse here, Empire as well, failing to pick up some of their own rounds. Going to be certainly wanting to try and negotiate for this third one here if they can get it. And they'll have a good opportunity to do so, as NIP will be forced to split up a little bit here with the extended setup going to the third floor once again.
They are in reading room as well as fireplace hall. It's a necessity to hold on to that top floor just to make sure that There's no guaranteed plant going down inside of the reading space. That tends to be where we end up seeing that go down. Obviously, we've had a couple of teams going for some fireplace plants as they'll be able to get control of Christmas and guarantee no one can man the hatch, and trying to sneak it in to the left-hand side single panel. Could be the adjustment later on for Empire as they're looking to tie this up. Gemini will hop in and they'll recognize that Kamikaze is currently playing inside of Shaiko.
So finding out that first player here, needing to find ways to counteract against. You can see the pressure from Empire building up. Over on the cocktail side of things, that's just going to cause a couple players from NIP to shift their perspective over towards Cigar end as well. So all this utility being dumped in from Empire potentially against it. We can see the full width of the flash grenades there available for Dan, and at least one of the frags on Joystick being used to try and counteract some of this pressure. One frag coming out from Always as well. So going back to the main point, huge amounts of utility being dumped here to try to clear out this setup, and still, the large majority of it is honestly yet to be dealt with as they just shift positions over towards Cigar side, and they're sitting nice and pretty now, still over half the round to go.
This is going to be very difficult for any of the Empire members to try and actually get in towards the building, but luckily enough, it doesn't seem like they need that in order to get some kills. Pino will be the first to fall yet again here. Previously from the frag grenade, but this time it's from a heads-up gunfight from Always. Psycho and the rest of the squad waiting to see what Empire's next move is going to be. Currently occupying the cocktail windows and looking to get something going on this top floor. A drone will mark out Julio. He won't be able to get that with the M590 at range, as we have a pretty sneaky nip player in behind the bar here. It's Kamikaze yet again that could possibly get some serious kills, but no, he's going to lose his life to Joystick. And oh, not like this, Psycho. They send the Nitro Cell outside as well, and with Shepard with very low HP, it could have been it, but he's moved perfectly and gotten yet another onto Julio. It's up to Muzi to prevent not only the perfect round, but hopefully fight back in a certain capacity.
All right, perfect round dead at least there. Muzi picking up a first trade against Scyther. Won't go any further than that, but Empire getting a nearly flawless round to end out the half in a very similar way to how they started it. Great control and a bit of overzealousness from NIP. They're coming in as they continue to contest for that third floor control after their initial utility had been pushed out over on Cocktail side. They tried to keep the fight going, but that only played into the favor of Empires. It was way too easy to isolate out those players once they lacked support.
Yeah, and Nip forcing Empire's hand in a lot of different ways, seeing a completely different Empire inside of those last two rounds and the way they wanted to handle things, especially with how they were occupying the windows and really applying pressure to Ninjas in Pyjamas in a way that they weren't exactly ready for. Also, a big change up there from Dan, basically pulling the gloves off when it came to Nomad. He's like, get rid of this AK. We're bringing it back in the ARX. We want to deal some damage here, boys and girls. And he's going to be able to get it done as well. Although Dan definitely not having as stellar as a game he did in Game 1, but that's A-okay because Always is currently 7-2.
Always certainly doing some good work here for Empire, and while other players like Dan, who was on fire in our first map, fell off a little bit, as we saw in that last round. They're starting to come alive as we get deeper into this map as well. The confidence possibly starting to brew back out here for Empire. You have to worry for Nip's sake about what we're potentially going to see from them, as once again, they try to throw some aggressive plays out, pay the price for it. Thankfully, again, they're going to a different side, so I don't imagine we're going to see any echoing effects off those last few rounds here. But if they fall into that hesitant state that we saw them fall into in Coastline, could be the beginning of the end for them in this series.
Most definitely. 3-3 score line, dead even coming into this second half here for both of these teams. Kafe, definitely a finicky map when it comes down to this, and from what we've seen so far, it really can break down either way. The big thing here for Empire on this defense is recognizing that Nip will more than likely go for a similar play around the cocktail defense and trying to get these nades under them. 6 nades right now for Ninjas in Pyjamas. Julio and Kamikaze both rocking stuns, so they'll be able to burn out those ADSs as well as assist with the Aruni gates around the map.
It's already 30 seconds gone by, a pretty uneventful 30 seconds, as you guys would generally expect to see at the beginning of any siege round here. Just got that little wrinkle to play down below. We're going to be certainly keeping an eye on Scyther all the way on the first floor. And he's not alone either. You can see Joystick positioned over by the white doorway. I think more so trying to watch out in case NIP wanted to send anyone here initially, so he'll more than likely rotate back up. But I do definitely want to keep an eye on our other player positioned closer towards Bakery to see if they try to do anything later on in the round. Away from that, though, it's just your standard hold here. We got the extension from Dan over over onto the inside of Cigar, but he's going to quickly abandon that after being spotted out here. He's quickly trying to make the transition as well, being careful not to reveal himself to the skylight. It's going to be Scyther that ends up finding the opener here also versus Pino, knocking out the sledge. Thankfully, a third floor hold not going to necessarily need him. And as well, the exchange comes in from Psycho pretty much immediately. So we go from a 5v5 very quickly down to a 4v4.
But all picks are not made the same, John. This is a huge discrepancy here. Not only taking down Pino in one of the top frags for Ninjas in Pyjamas, but also getting rid of nades and the sledgehammer. Whereas Shepard, his utility is going to persist. It does not matter here. All of these are still going to be locked up, and it's still going to be something that Ninjas in Pyjamas have to deal with, whilst also being down one of the main frags.
So he always just going to annoy his opponent a little bit. He actually does lose the camera as a result of popping that open as well there. So I think I might have misidentified that. However, it's not going to matter as the player that was wielding that utility a few moments ago is now going to be dead due to the very nice Nitro cell that was chucked out from Dan, bringing it down to a 4v3. Dan continuing to pressure forward now that they have the advantage. Once again, you can see he's got a little bit of a line to potentially play through there if someone from NIP peeks into it, but not going to find them. And a drone getting pinged out there that he'll be watching out for, so tries to back away from that one. Does see a new Maverick hole being created, so he's going to get the heck out of here before nade or some other form of utility gets chucked through that could lead to his death.
Yeah, they're really worried about somebody inside of Freezer. That's what Psycho's nading right now, just because of the similar position that we saw them play previously. Definitely a hot spot for a lot of bodies to be. But speaking of which, Joysticks found a body of his own. He'll take down Psycho. Kamikaze going to take a serious amount of damage from the Roni. Julio's been down, and it's looking like it's going to be yet another Empire round as Dan finishes that up. Kamikaze will hop down off the balcony, and that's basically the round there, folks. Kamikaze really isn't going to be able to do much from this position.
The third floor continuing to truly favor Empire, even from a new side here. That'll be a 3-1 record for them on this site, just inside of this map alone. And there you go, Joystick just clotheslining the last opponent there as he tries to navigate his way up the red stairs and denied as he reaches the top with a quick headshot coming in from Joystick there. Beautifully done once again from Empire. Great control, just like we saw on their last round as well. On the attacking side for this very same site, they'll move right along here over towards reading for the next upcoming round.
Well, Nip's still very calm. You know, no one really seeming too aggravated about the position that they're currently in, just trying to figure out exactly what they can do up against Empire. The biggest thing right now is that these picks are bountiful for Empire on the defensive side. Nitro cells, gunfire, everything coming on to Ninjas in Pyjamas in the moment, and there's no way that they can really fight back. They only were able to muster a singular frag inside of that initial round there for round 7. And, well, now they're looking to change up quite a few things. Biggest obstacle now is that they kind of have to play into a similar setup. Yes, again, it is the second floor, but as we all know from what we've seen thus far, they're going to play this top floor. It's very important to the overall story of what is going to happen inside of this round. Also bring in some pretty serious utility to make sure that no one can get too forceful towards the site, just because of the way that Nip ends up playing their later rounds. Once it gets down to around that minute time, if Nip has been stagnant, they'll start just walking in towards you in different areas and can really catch the defense off guard. We saw it happen on Coastline. We've seen it happen a monumental amount of times with this team overall.
It's interesting that NIP are going to be so calm here as well. Yes, this is the group stage, and for some of our legendary teams, they would have no problem making it out of the group stage here. NIP are looking at a potential 0-2 record on series overall here, which is not going to be good considering there's only 2 additional matchups aside from that they'll have to play out for the group, which could leave them in a very, very bad spot to be that 5th team in the group if things continue to go awry, where they would be eliminated here in the groups if things continue to go badly.
It would be hilariously tragic. And not in the sense of, oh yeah, it's funny. It's just like this, the way that we have this structured right now for the group stage, the stellar teams should not be getting knocked out. Like, there's really no way that you should be losing and actually getting, knocked out in groups.
That was my thought pattern for, for the Titans that have already proven themselves and made it to multiple SIs. This was just like a seeding stage for them, basically, here. They would have only been able to need to take, like, what, 2 or 3 of their games, maybe just 2 of them, and they're going to be okay. They make it through, they get into the bracket, then focus up for the big games. But it's not necessarily the case for some of our teams, as we're seeing here, specifically for NIP here. They were getting put into the hot seat very, very quickly. And for Empire, they're feeling more and more comfortable here as they were able to rebound in their matchup versus the Sonics yesterday and are now in great control here of their matchup versus NIP.
This could be a serious issue for them, actually, because they only got a singular map off of Sandbox yesterday. That means Sandbox got their 2 points, Nip got 1. If they lose this map right here, that's 0 points. None. And that's also 3 for Empire, which means they've basically guaranteed themselves going into the final stage, even if things do go very wrong over these next couple of days. But for Ninjas in Pyjamas, this could mean that starting to sweat a little bit on that brow as that realization sets in.
A very uneventful opening to this round here as we're nearly 2 minutes into it and a whole lot of nothing has happened here except for NIP.
That's a freebie.
Slowly clearing things out. Pino nearly getting caught here in the meanwhile here as he's brought down to a sliver of HP. We can see some more members of NIP, specifically Psycho, trying to open up the cocktail hold, but it's not going to reveal a whole lot. No damage onto any of the Empire members. They seem to be very well aware of the damage they got onto Pino, and their entire setup for the most part is going to fall back now to that second floor as they only have a minute left to turtle out here inside of the site.
Scyther double checking to make sure the Christmas hatch is still sealed before he progresses forward into train. This is looking like an Empire round across the board, even with 5 people still alive. It's up to Nip to start getting these picks that they desperately need going into these last 30 seconds. Pino, though, although he is very low on HP, he'll still be allowed to do his job given the circumstances, so the sledge will be breaking up this floor, and Muzi possibly with the answer to what's going on this mid-level.
See, once again, the members of NIP just desperately hunting for someone on these top-down angles. Oh, Kamikaze so close to isolating out Dan, and he's going to get him, finding an exchange. Julio with an important second pickup immediately after that against Scyther as well. That's exactly what we needed to see, but now we need them to get into the site right here, right now. Someone needs to put that case down onto the ground, and they won't be able to do it as always. Drops it in that dying second, giving yet another round over to Empire.
A magical round there from Empire, respecting what Nip could have done with that clear upstairs and what they had already established. We see Joystick deal some serious damage to Pino, then fall off with the rest of the team. They start to play things horizontally and take control of that instead because they know Nip is not in that space. And the train play is what ends up winning them the round from always, as he just simply walks back to the fireplace and is able to prevent Habana from sticking the plant. Empire up by 2 rounds.
Empire starting to feel more and more confident once again about their position. Flawless so far in this defensive half with the win upstairs on the 3rd floor. Now the 2nd floor, and they'll continue to move downwards here as they go to a 1st floor hold. What could very well be the final one of their initial rotation, where we'll just see them go right back up to the 3rd floor after this and try to close out the map if things continue to go in their favor. Meanwhile, for NIP, operator line going to remain the same, but the clearing path finally going to differ itself a bit if they would like to here, as finally most of the focus is going to be contained to a singular floor here on the 1st.
I'll tell you what, my friend, I'm excited to see Empire with their full bench, because I think we're even going to get a better performance out of them than what we've already seen over these last couple of days. We've definitely seen some moments where Empire had some cracks in the armor, but overall, it has been very strong from the Russian machine. Ninjas in Pyjamas not able to get too much over on them. Collectively right now, they have 5 rounds through 2 maps.
Looking very, very confident indeed here for the Empire roster. Not going to be too much in terms of any surprises here as far as their kitchen setup is concerned. We are going to get that little bit of an extension once again out into Bakery, specifically for the Jaeger to play behind. He's got the 2 ADSs there, and they can hide up behind the counter, quickly fall back behind that rotation if things get a little bit too dodgy to stay alive. And of course, the Echo in play for Shepard too. We talked about that in one of our matches yesterday, about how he's become kind of a mainstay for this site. A lot of debris on the roof, and there's even that little shelf we saw one player chuck one up into where you can kind of hide those yokai drones. And if you're able to keep the Echo alive, of course, swing it out for a nice clutch in the dying seconds of the round.
Yeah, always a nice one to keep in your back pocket for, if we do see a bunker plant or something like that, like Shepard went for earlier on their kitchen offense. Shepard already abusing these Echo drones handedly as he's getting some information for Scyther. Also, I think we already saw some damage, yes indeed, onto Dan, just a little bit, nothing too crazy, as he's actually playing inside of VIP and not with the M590 SMG-11 setup, instead the FMG-9, a gun that honestly we don't get to see enough of. This is the SMG that we see on Nook, as well as the 2 SAS ops on defense, and it's actually a pretty solid SMG overall, especially with that 1.5. It's highly abusable for positions like what we see from Joystick in the moment.
Got 2 horizontal extensions away from the site here for Empire. One inside of Kochek, and the other one, of course, we were talking about before, back towards VIP. And it's actually going to be a double towards Kochek, but Scyther, some bad timing there, walks back into Kochek just as a nade was being chucked in, and that'll give Psycho the opening kill of the round with a very well-timed nade here. Empire going to have to be very cautious about how they try to leverage any further aggression. We can see that Shepard still wants to try and play towards this position, towards Kochek. Dan also still over here towards VIP too. He's going to actually chuck out one of his toxic babes, but more likely realizing that the threat may not be there right now. Still keeps it blocked, however, eventually implodes that grenade. Still get a lot of pressure against him, and ultimately now lose Dan, actually, as the pressure from Muzi continues to boil in. Shepard also not ready for the swing over from Whiskey here, so things looking rough, but a very smooth headshot against Kamikaze to drop the case. That's certainly going to, at minimum, cause some delay here here in the NIP camp.
Well, this is the good news for Empire in the current moment. Look at the drone count for Ninjas in Pyjamas. They have zero info as to what's going on in sight. They've dealt the damage to Empire, but now this is all face checking. The good news for them, though, they still got some utility in the back pocket as well as some solid rifles to be able to get this done. But Joystick knows what Empire's done. They've seen the drone count, and they know that they have zero intel as to what's going on in the current moment. He's currently playing inside of Small Bacon. Really nobody aware of the current moment as to what could possibly happen. Joystick gonna get a pick up onto Psycho, but immediately gets refragged by Julio. And Ninjas in Pyjamas starting to surge forward. Shepard possibly able to find one, but it's going to be the crossfire from Pino here as Ninjas in Pyjamas will finally get their first offensive round.
Smooth clear coming in there from NIP, capitalizing on the overzealousness that we were getting out of the members of Empire. They're trying to play for early control, trying to aggress in areas like Kochek and VIP. NIP was aware of it the entire time, and as you saw, was dumping loads of drones into those positions to reaffirm it constantly, so it made it a very easy process for NIP to just overwhelm those players or manage to find them out with some very nice angle play, and as well open up the site very easily in the dying seconds of the round there as it went down to about a 3v1 there.
Yeah, very interesting to see Empire occupying Kochek so aggressively when they knew that more than likely that amount of utility would be pouring in there, just because they really didn't have anything to assist them inside of that space. So a little bit of a blunder there, but it is what it is. Empire's still in the lead, and obviously them recognizing that the kitchen defense probably not the best thing to be bringing up against Ninjas in Pyjamas, especially with the way that they were able to work that bottom floor there, dealing a lot of damage to Empire when Empire really wasn't able to fight back in any capacity. So they're going to send it to the top floor here where Ninjas in Pyjamas had a lot of issues the first time around.
Very kind of open policy in terms of the overall site setup we had down there in kitchen too. So once things started to deteriorate, it just made it that much easier for NIP to walk right in and find a few more members of Empire just standing out in the open.
It's an easy thing to forget in Rainbow Six that angles work both ways. You know, you establish a lot of these things and you're like, oh dude, we can shut them down from any avenue that they possibly want to walk in from. But if you get distracted by one side of the building, they just so happen to, oh, I don't know, aggress on the other side. Now they have some angles to abuse against you, and that's exactly what we see inside of that, especially with Dan, not Joystick, Dan inside of VIP there on the smoke as he was able to get picked up by Ninjas in Pyjamas out towards the white garage.
All right, so let's see if Empire can quickly rebound as they'll be returning to a bit more successful territory in terms of their earlier advantages in this half. Back up to the third floor, where they're going to look to try and negotiate their 6th round here, but with NIP hot on their heels by only 1 round and an overall score of 4-5. NIP wasting no time opening up the usual hatches here and trying to reverse themselves downwards through that. We are not going to have any presence from Empire extended out into Cigar or Christmas this time, so we'll continue to see a very easy drop here for the NIP members to at least take that top red control and start moving themselves from here.
Well, now the patience game for both of these teams is the drones need to figure out what Empire's doing on this top floor. Also occupying some other spaces. You can see Joystick worried about those frag grenades coming for Cocktail that we could see later on, as well as quite a few of the Empire bodies overall actually dedicated to the bottom space of the east side of the building, just trying to make sure that NIP can't actually work their way in here and deal some serious damage. As Dan and always on site to occupy this for the time being. Pino will get onto the Cocktail windows here as we start to have the stuns pour out. This could be pretty fast acting depending on how NIP want to try and handle this.
Continuing to see this time tick down here. Very, very slow approach for both of these teams as both of them very cautious about the potential outcome from them. They're the first to make a mistake. A very well-placed Nitro chucked down against Pino from Shepard, though, gives Empire the first kill and now gives them the clear to get a little bit more aggressive here, and they're immediately going to swing on that one. Psycho sneaking one in, and the call's not made for Always. He's not able to react in time, so Psycho gets a second going for him as well, and now a third. He's just waltzing right in from Cocktail side. Dan finally gets some control going for himself as he trades out against Muzi, but Psycho is still a huge problem inside a Cocktail.
Well, Psycho, a lot to do inside of this one, and be an ace clutch from him. Case currently down, as well as a laser gate actually holding him back. He'll have to transition back over to the space, and Shepard, what the hell just happened? He misses every shot out of that Roni, and now it's down to Dan, and luckily enough, the M590 will clean it up. Shepard has got to be sweating bullets right now inside of his hotel room. He's probably so happy he's not on camera.
Yeah, absolutely the case. You're probably really happy he's not next to his teammates. He was getting some glares after that one.
Everybody's staring at him like, hey man, what the hell was that?
It's like, oh, no, the ping.
He's like, man, this Cat 6 cable ran to my room. Trash. I hate this.
I think it's 5 feet too long. It's one thing extra that I'm not used to here.
The light traveling through this is actually slower than everybody else's cables. I'm telling you right now. That why'd you guys have to show that again? That poor guy. I felt bad watching it over again. But I mean, the biggest thing there for Empire is that they're able to do some very serious damage control. It's going to be a timeout from Ninjas in Pyjamas, but to keep it honest with you guys, I'm going to be honest. I already said that. Oh my God. It's a little bit too little too late.
Yeah, it's another 6-round pause in the last map as well here. So NIP not finding a chance to do this previously, thinking that they kind of had some control over the matchup prior to this point, but not the case anymore here as we've gone to a 4-6 scoreline. Empire on the precipice of getting themselves a 2-0 victory, denying NIP of any points out of this series whatsoever, giving Empire the full spread of all 3 of them, boosting them forward here in the group standings and leaving them in a very, very secure position. We'll be closing out the attack pause in just a second here, and NIP will have to be ready to face the music as we get back into another round, another reading room hold, which again, we've already seen success deployed towards this site earlier on in the half from Empire, so this is just a repeat for them once more.
And once again, we have a map filled with Ninjas in Pyjamas not able to secure opening bloods up against their opponents. And that's been the tail of the tape for them this entire LAN. Their entries have not been there. Basically, the entire team negative in that capacity at the current moment. So it's something that we're really, really looking into and hoping that they can possibly get something going in the future here. But, I mean, the future's not looking too bright in the moment. It's also looking pretty short as Empire is headed towards Reading and Fireplace Hall.
And this is with Empire already showing some issues in their own entry game and their initial match versus Sandbox Gaming yesterday as well. So that's not to make a point that like Empire, like the super strong entry team, it's only in this series where we've seen it. So NIP just not able to contend with what an opponent on a very similar level to them is bringing to the table here and starting to cause massive issues due to their inability to fight in that respect here. Still those 2 rounds, though, is all that's needed for them to be able to swing this one back. So we will wait and see if NIP might just yet be able to save themselves. They'll need to do it in overtime, though, so not only just those 2 rounds need to be picked up, but 2 additional ones after that will need to be found as well if they want to send us over to Clubhouse for the final battle.
Yeah, I might be hungry, but food can wait. Ninjas in Pyjamas really needs to get something going here, not only for their sake, but for everybody's sake at home, because I believe that all of us expected something more out of this squad coming into this. This is a 6th Invitational, for God's sakes. This is our champion from the previous year. We need some semblance of anything from Ninjas in Pyjamas. Yes, they've been able to get it going on this map, but the damage has already been dealt on Coastline, and now with their map choice at match point by the opposing squad, I mean, this is going to be a very hard pill to swallow if it does end up going Empire's way.
Scyther trying to knock out the drone, sneak its way through Cigar. Unfortunately, it's going to be unsuccessful here, so all that intel will bleed over. Not like it's a massive loss or anything for him to get revealed this early on. This is kind of a typically expected setup with the extension up towards the 3rd floor here. He'll be trying to fend off any early repels or descents from the red hatch, but looking like he's actually going to have a pretty calm time here initially. That is, of course, until we see that repel that you guys saw from the blue silhouette work its way onto the White Hall window here, where it's looking like 1, if not 2 players are potentially going to try and get aggressive against that. They'll end up shooting out the by clone here, and unfortunately ends up hitting it once or twice, so he's going to give away the position of the player on repel, but again, not too much of a surprise. We can already see one player waiting for it. We didn't see that was just how close they were, so Dan chucks it out on a timing play, and it works out as he gets the opening kill yet again against Psycho.
Well, Dan, yet again, showing up for Empire as he has shored things up against Always. Not the greatest start to the map, but now positive in his scoreline. 8-6 currently as Ninjas in Pyjamas are trying to find an answer. Muzi trying to creep up White, but is Dan aware of this? He's able to get the drone, and that's going to force Muzi back. He doesn't want to commit just yet here and possibly get blasted away by the member sitting on the top of the stairwell. With a minute remaining, Ninjas in Pyjamas has got to do something here. They've been able to at least look into the top floor, but I mean, John, they're stuck inside a Cigar.
Yeah, they've barely made any progress in terms of map control here. Scyther's just patiently waiting for someone to try and pressure him. Obviously, Dan fended off the only real threat to Scyther's life up until this point. Kamikaze as well. At this point, just hoping for an over-aggression on Empire due to how much control they still have. And oh, he's actually going to get it too with the timing, man. So unfortunate.
Oh, no.
And he gets clipped from over in mining. Muzi, to his credit, very quick on the exchange, so at least avoids this from going completely out of control, but still a 3v4, 22 seconds remaining. Dan more than ready to fend off this pressure from the hell doorway here. It's not really going to work out. They don't even seem to have capability to take out the laser gate, so they'd have to force the issue on that as well and just run right through it, eat the HP from it. Pino, getting shredded through the self-destruction wall over there as well. Julio with one more exchange coming in, but he's the only one still standing for his team as Pino has been down. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Scyther closes it down, and it's going to go all the way for Empire as they take a quick 2-0 victory against the Ninjas, the former SI champions from last year. They take it 7-2 and 7-4 against them here as they continue to dominate inside the group stage.
It's been good and it's been fun, Ninjas in Pyjamas.